Love, live, life. Life can be glorious and hideous. Stick your feet to the ground, but don't think you are counted out. Don't let the wind pull you and tear you apart. Let yourself live freely and love, and you'll be happy. No limits. Just keep on.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another Iron Will podcast with me, Shane Warner, and
John Chase.
So what this podcast is all about is we are trying to get stories from people that have been through a traumatic experience in their lives and came out a different person.
Yeah, they have all created an iron will. So what is an iron will? A burning determination that cannot be stopped or hindered by anything, willing to do anything to get a desired outcome, extremely resilient. So what we like to say is just keep punching.
Yeah. So sit back and relax, and we're going to start the show. We're just going to start this podcast off with introducing Chris Schmidt. And how I know Chris is, I'm not really sure.
There's a few connections. There's actually a few connections. So.
Yeah, but he is the dean of students at Lindsey Wilson College. Awesome. And that's where Hannah Morales went to school. Yep. And so I have that connection with him. And also he is good friends with Dakota Meyer. And,
yes, sir.
And
we all know Dakota.
Yeah. So can you just kind of introduce yourself, Chris, and let us know what you're all about? Like, where'd you grow up and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, first, Shane, John, I want to thank you for inviting me on to the podcast. I mean, I'm pretty humbled being asked to be part of this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, my name is Chris Schmidt. I currently work at Lindsey Wilson College and serve as the dean of students. I've been working at the college for 25 years, but I'm not a native Kentuckian. I was born and raised in New York City. Went to City College for a year. Grew up a normal New York City kid. My dad is a Marine. My mom and dad both worked for the federal government. After my dad got out of the Corps, he served in Vietnam. And when he got out of the Corps, he was a veteran of the Vietnam War, and he did 2.5 years in a military hospital because he had been shot up so bad. But then when he got out, when he finally got out, he was fortunate enough to get on with the post office, and then he served as in the government, working for the post office. Started out as a mail carrier and worked his way up, through the ranks. And then, so we just kind of grew up normal, normal middle-class folks. I went to City College for a year, and then I got a basketball scholarship and went upstate New York. Yeah, I went upstate New York to State University at Dell. Yeah. And then my family moved. They shocked me. My senior year of high school, they took off for Kentucky. And I was like, I don't even know where that is. So that's why I went to school up there for a little bit.
What was the change? Like, just a new job, or what was?
I think it was, we grew up, right by the Staten Island Ferry. I grew up on Staten Island, so we grew up really close to Staten Island Ferry, not very far. And they worked in Brooklyn, and so the commute I could see from basically if you went along the river right there where the Staten Island Ferry is, I could see Brooklyn, and I could see the office buildings they worked in, but yet it took them almost 2.5 hours to get to work every day.
Oh man.
So they would spend 4 hours of their life
commuting.
Yeah, dude, that's rough.
And we didn't live in a poor neighborhood, but we were one of those border neighborhoods that was kind of half, sort of middle class, half kind of in some shady neighborhoods.
Sure.
I grew up, occasionally having to fight my way out of situations. And I just think they wanted better. They had my parents, my dad put himself through college, working 2 jobs, through the GI Bill. And my mom would work a semester. My mom would take on 2 jobs, and my dad would work his main job and go to school for a semester. And then they would switch back and forth.
It's so good to see or hear about people that use their GI Bill for a positive,
Yeah, that's great.
and
Yeah.
got something out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was. I'm super proud of my dad, and I think it's probably why my relationship with Dakota is so good too. Because I think you grow up as a Marine in that family. Like people ask me often. They say, "Oh, did you serve in the military?" And I said no, but I am certainly a patriot.
Yeah.
But I said I grew up in a Marine house. I said, which is anybody who, and no offense to all the other service branches, because I respect all of them equally. But when you grow up in a Marine house, especially a veteran of a war, there's a little. I think you take a little bit of the Marine Corps with you.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
I've been to Paris Island multiple times growing up as a kid. So all my cousins, uncles, all those kind of people graduate. But my dad was adamant that his son was going to get an education. He found out that I was meeting with a recruiter late in my junior year, and he was not a
He
happy
got
camper.
mad.
Well, because everybody in my family served. My grandfather was decorated in World War II, serving in the Army. He was a Bronze Star, Purple Heart.
Wow.
My dad, Purple Heart. He was just a lot of different things, but he just saw a different opportunity. That Vietnam, as we all know. I mean, I'm not a historian on it, but we all know. He was in the Dewey's Canyon battle, which is one of the bloodiest battles of the Vietnam War. Most of his buddies. I've been to the wall many times in D.C. to go recognize and see his brothers that passed away. And he was one. He was like many veterans returning. He had a very sour taste in his mouth that time in the 60s. He was shot in 68. To return back, especially to a very liberal city like New York City, it just wasn't a cool environment. And he was one of those closet vets for many, many years. I'm proud of him now.
I think that's the way, like, most Vietnam vets were. Like, they didn't really talk about it, and for good reason.
Yeah. And so, I'm so proud of him now. I mean, I'm actually going up to see him. My birthday was last week, and his birthday is Monday. So we always celebrate ours. We pick a neutral weekend in between. And I'm going to go visit him in Louisville tomorrow for his birthday. And
cool.
He came out. We always tease and say he came out of that PTSD / Vietnam closet of just being proud again for what for serving his country, and and he circled up and met other. Unfortunately, war brings out both the good and bad in things, and I think with a lot of men like, say, Dakota's age that served both in Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot of the veterans from Vietnam saw an opportunity to all of a sudden step up again and befriend all these guys that were returning. So like my dad and Dakota
make sure that they didn't get the same reception that as the Vietnam guys got.
For sure.
Yeah. And so I'm proud. My dad is now back in uniform again. He is part of the Louisville League for. He's part of a Marine Corps organization, and he has his. He was saved late in life, and he's a Christian, and he's very proud of that. And so he actually now does rifle details for the Marine Corps League, and he also presides over funerals in full uniform. And so at 73 years of age, him and all these other men, they realize that the core values that they learned in the Corps and just serving our country, you never surrender those, even though you may not be like in a war anymore, that they still have a responsibility to serve. And I've always told him that all along. It just took him years to kind of come up out of that shell. So I'm so proud to see him doing that again. I think that had a strong influence on me, and certainly how I see my job. Like, that's why I said earlier, I said, I can't say that I've been in the military, but I do believe that I serve every day as a patriot.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
For our country, but then also just in our jobs. Like, each one of us has a responsibility. Like, many of the young students that I serve, parents are serving in Afghanistan or serving in the military. So I think about the responsibility I have to caring for their children while they're out protecting us. You got to find the balance in things. And I think my dad helped me see that through his service, and then the men that I met along the way, men and women that I met along the way, through all the different channels, like you said, meeting Dakota. That's how Dakota and I ended up hooking up. He came back from Afghanistan and enrolled at Lindsay. And someone connected him to me, and that's how that kind of happened.
So,
interesting,
I was listening to the podcast you did with Dakota, and you said you went to his medal of honor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
When
that
he
was
received it.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was. He came up. I remember he would come up to the office every day. And
Well,
we'd go to lunch.
He
and
must.
He'd come up one day and
you
says,
must be really close to him, like for him to ask you to be there for that. It's
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud that he chooses to keep me in his circle of friends, and he asked my whole family. My son, it's probably one of the most influential things. My son was probably 11 or 12 at the time, and he got to go, and they've still remained best friends. My wife, it was a humbling experience to be in the room with so many. I mean, Dakota was receiving the medal that day, but if you were one of those people who sort of like step back and gets to the fringes and really takes in what you're witnessing, there were so many amazing human beings in that room.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because Dakota had invited people he had served with. And so when you start getting introduced to these people and shaking their hands and meeting them and then hearing the stories, you realize that you're just in the company of giants, just absolute. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Well,
cool. So I want to talk to you about, I asked you before, like if you were an introvert or an extrovert, and you said you were introverted as a kid, but outside of the house you would be like a type A personality. And so,
yes, sir.
Can you kind of explain that? And I'm guessing why is because you had a dad like you had that was a veteran and stuff like that. So he probably took on that role in your household. Yes.
Shane, you hit the nail on the head. Like, there's no doubt. The Schmidt family, they tease, all my friends, family, we all tease. There's a Schmidt family gene that we have no problem talking. We've never met a stranger. It's not an issue. But the problem is when everybody has that gene and in the Schmidt house, somebody has to take a step back. And so my dad's a big talker. My younger brother has an equally large personality. My mom she holds her own too. My mom's a super strong woman, very, very strong. And so there was a lot of personality in our house, and it was just easier for me to, I've always been sort of credited with being the listener. And so I would listen, and I just I interject when it was time to interject, but I didn't have to dominate the conversation in my family. But I think that when I was outside of my house, because I had that open personality, it gave me an opportunity to insert myself and be more dynamic. So now that's what I do for a living.
Yeah, what does the dean of students actually do? Like
I tell parents all the time. It's a great question, John. I tell parents all the time, and I tell students, like, if you think of your high school principal, or like a principal of a school, I oversee all the student body. So anything that deals with student services, so public safety and security, campus recreation, the campus nurse, residence halls. I specifically take care of all the judicial affairs, all the rules, career services, international student population. Is about 10 incredibly awesome directors that I get to work with every day. I supposedly, I'm their boss, but I always tell them, I said, we're a team. So like we all take direction from each other. And so about 80% of the day-to-day operation falls under this umbrella of student services. And and that's a good chunk of that is underneath my leadership. So, I get to interact with students all day long.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hopefully I provide them some good counsel to help them become productive citizens. That's my objective.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I always wondered that because, I went to college and everything, and, they would say, hey, that's the dean of students. I don't know what that means, but okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, dude.
I write a lot of rules, and I'm expected to hold people accountable for the rules. So, but I think the reason why, they say God has a plan for everybody. And I think that the plan that he had for me is I was, Shane, you asked me earlier, how did I kind of end up here? Well, if you were paying attention to the math I was given before, I did a year at City College, 2 years in junior college, and then 3 years at Western Kentucky University, got an undergraduate degree. And traditionally it should only take you 4 years.
Right.
My outspokenness